Hey, is this thing on? Hello? Hit it again. I think it's on now. Welcome to Hiker Trash Radio, where each week, Doc will drag some colorful characters out of the woods to talk trail and Type 2 fun. If you're aspiring hiker trash, or if you're just looking to understand the hiker trash in your life, look no further. So lace up those boots, gnaw on some jerky, and settle into your 20-mile pace as we fire up the podcast from somewhere deep in the backcountry. It's time to embrace the suck. Hey, is this thing on? Hello? Hit it again. I think it's on now. Welcome to Hiker Trash Radio, where each week, Doc will drag some colorful characters out of the woods to talk trail and Type 2 fun. If you're aspiring hiker trash, or if you're just looking to understand the hiker trash in your life, look no further. So lace up those boots, gnaw on some jerky, and settle into your 20-mile pace as we fire up the podcast from somewhere deep in the backcountry. It's time to embrace the suck.
We are stoked to partner with Garage Grown Gear on this episode of Hiker Trash Radio. Garage Grown Gear, or GGG for short, is your online store for all things ultralight backpacking. Dedicated to supporting the growth of small and cottage brands, they've got everything you need all in one place. From ultralight accessories to dehydrated meals to your big three, Garage Grown Gear has everything you need to lighten your load. Based out of St. Paul, Minnesota, GGG is known for its commitment to providing quality ultralight gear, stellar customer service, and free shipping and returns over $40.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. Dirtbags, hiker trash, and of course, those good-smelling day hikers. I'm Doc. This is Hiker Trash Radio. Hey, if you like what we're doing over here, help us out. Take just a minute, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you don't like what we're doing, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's the first mess up. All right, let's get to this week's guest, the founder of Durston Gear, Dan Durston. Welcome to Hiker Trash Radio, Dan. How's it going?
Hey, Doc. Thanks. Oh, yeah. It's going good. Crazy busy. We're just, we're a few weeks away from launching a new tent. So it's like crunch time for us.
Fantastic. I think we'll get the big question out of the way right up front. And that is, how did you come up with the name of the company?
It's obviously it's my last name. I didn't want it to be. The whole history of the company is a complicated thing, but I was like, we got to get something cooler than that. I was trying to name it after some peaks and stuff, but I had a partner at the time, and they were like, no, people know who you are. Like, you have to stick with your last name. I was, all right. So
well, we're gonna get into the story behind the company and the whole journey where you got it off the ground and made it the success it is today. But what were some of the alternative names that could have been the name of the company?
Yeah, well, I have one. My front runner on hindsight was terrible. There's my favorite peak, Great Mountain, not a great name. It was called Ski Hist, and yeah, it's spelled like ski and then HIST. And I thought, I love the mountain, so I was like, yeah, it's called Ski Hist. But like, nobody knows how to spell that, so it's good we didn't.
Durston, I like Durston. That's good.
Yeah, people can spell it, so that's good.
All right, now Dan, have you had a chance to listen to the podcast before?
I listened to one, just broke the seal there the other week.
Okay, good. You know what you're getting yourself into. So I like to think of our conversation here as a walk out on the trail, and you and I are having conversations while we're on the trail. We're going to go by trail names. So you're going to call me Doc. And I know that you have hiked the PCT. Did you pick up a trail name along the way, Dan?
I did. People don't know what it is. Yeah, I picked up a trail name. It was one of those ones where you start the trail and everybody's getting names, and some of them are like brilliant. They're funny and they fit perfect. and I wasn't really getting anything, and it's kind of the awkward, right? Because you can't just like, there's some pressure there. Like you can't be like halfway down the trail when you're figuring out your trail name, or kind of it's too late. So my wife had a perfect trail name. Her first name, she goes by T, and her favorite animal is the fox. And then like on day 3, there was this like fox, like desert fox, following her down the trail as like the spirit animal. And so she was like, "Oh, I'm T Fox." So she's got the perfect name, and I didn't have anything. So time was going, and everyone's got these funny names. Finally, I was probably like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 weeks in. I don't think I was at the Sierras yet, but pretty far. Anyways, my trail name ended up being Lorax. Because I am a big environmental guy, kind of environmental rants and things like that. So it was fine, but it never really stuck because it was kind of like we were a little desperate to pick something.
Okay. And how many miles in was this?
I would think maybe 500. Yeah, I mean, everybody was getting them so quick, and I was under a lot of pressure. So this is kind of for the people that didn't quite get that perfect trail name. I used it for the trail, but after that, I didn't really use it too much.
So yeah, 500 miles in, does trail name anxiety start setting in?
Yeah, I mean, that was a decade ago, so I'm a little rusty on the miles, but it was like definitely like after the first week, you're sort of like, hey, I got to be thinking about this. And after like 2 weeks, it's like most people have them. And by 3 weeks, yeah, you're sort of got to start making decisions.
So Lorax, and then you mentioned environmentalist. I thought Lorax sounds like a Dr. Seuss character.
Yeah, he's the Dr. Seuss character that's trying to save the trees. So he's they're cutting down all the trees, and it's the mass capitalism liquidating the forest for useless material goods. So I'm a big like environmental guy. So it fit, but it wasn't like funny or something like you wanted to be.
So just hearing you talk about your trail name, I'm now questioning, do you want me to call you by Dan tonight, or Lorax, or a combination of, just whatever I feel like?
Yeah, you could go with what feels natural. Lorax is fine. I haven't been called it in like a decade, but
okay.
It's a good blast from the past.
All right. Well, Lorax, you've listened to at least one episode. You know that we do have a segment towards the end of every episode called the Hiking Hack. That's where I'm going to turn to you and ask you to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. So don't be surprised when we get there.
Okay.
Now, you're expected to drop trail knowledge throughout the episode, but make sure you have one in store for the very end.
Yeah, I'll save the good one.
Save the good one. All right. Hey, let's get to our first segment.
Trailblazers Toolkit.
Okay, now this is a bit awkward because this particular segment is sponsored by another gear company, but I'm going to go ahead. That's right. It's time for the Trailblazers Toolkit, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. Now, Lorax, I love to talk about gear on the podcast, and I love to hear about the most important item in my guest adventure gear. So if you were preparing for your next adventure, and I was the one providing you with all your gear, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? Give me all the details on that piece of gear and tell me why you've got to have it out there. And this could be any kind of item. It could be gear. It could be apparel. It could be a luxury item. I even had somebody a couple episodes ago talk about food, what kind of food he wanted packed. So, Dan, what is that item in your toolkit?
Yeah, there's a bunch of gear. Gear's so awesome. I'm a big gear nerd. I love gear. I love it all. And there's the classics, right? Like there's like the sleeping bags and quilts that are just so essential to a good time. But for me, something that I think flies under the radar, but I love, is having a pair of super light trekking poles. I find that people don't really appreciate this. People don't talk about it as much as some other lightweight stuff, but it makes such a difference. If you're used to trekking poles, maybe you tried them once, maybe you don't use them because they're kind of heavy and clunky or whatever, or you got used to them, but when you use, like we sell some, but it's not just about like our poles. Like there's other brands too that make awesome poles. It's really just when you get poles that are like crazy light, it's so awesome. And I like could never go back. So if I on a trip, if I forgot my super light poles and someone's like, oh, here, just use these like standard ones. It's like, I don't want to be a snob, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. It's almost like, the saying that a pound on the foot is like 5 on the back, right? So
yeah.
If you use lightweight shoes, that's going to help. I imagine using lightweight poles, it has the same kind of effect. It's going to save maybe some forearm and shoulder if you across 2,500 miles. It's going to make a difference.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just such a difference because you're flinging them, like winging them every stride.
Now, what would you say to those new hikers out there who are like, I think trekking poles, I think that's for old people. I don't want to look strange. I don't want people to make fun of me. What do you say to the trekking pole doubters out there?
Yeah, I mean, I love them. I don't try to convince people too much, but I've been there too, where like you use them for the first time, you don't even know how necessarily to use them. Like your cadence is wrong. You're like moving them kind of at the same time as your feet, or you just sort of randomly stabbing them at the ground. It could feel awkward at first, so I would say like for people, I would say like give it a real shot. You should have. I'm a 2-pole user, like most people. So the 1-pole thing kind of. Maybe it's fading again now, but it had sort of a little bit buzzy there. But 2 poles alternating, like they're kind of working opposite your feet to sort of lengthen your stride. And that's just able to like, you can put more power down with your different muscles on climbs, spread the load, you can go faster. You're just extending your stride a little bit. Yeah, it's great once you get used to it, but you do have to get used to it. So give it a fair shot. And
let's talk about trail etiquette for a second. Let's say you're with somebody who's a brand new trekking pole user and he's using them incorrectly. I mean, it's obvious. He's just not getting the maximum benefit out of these things. Do you say something to him or do you not? Do you just let him figure it out?
Yeah, it's hard to watch when people are like doing it like at a really awkward sort of thing. But it's also something that people just sort of have to like find that feel. And I've tried to explain it to people and they're just sort of not getting it. So now I do just sort of like let people like hope they find that sweet spot.
Just watch, cringe, and hope that they're going to find that right cadence. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's keep talking about the outdoors and other cool stuff with our next segment.
It's the hiking pole.
That's right. It's time for the hiking pole, and that's pole spelled with 2 L's, like a survey, not like those things you carry in your hands out there. The hiking pole is sponsored by Triple Crown Coffee, dedicated to the craft of fine coffee and the preservation of our national scenic hiking trails. For each pound of coffee sold, Triple Crown Coffee donates $1 to the nonprofit organization working to protect that trail. All right, Lorax, this is a 7-question survey. It's going to help me give you a score on the sanity scale from 1 to 100, with 1 being completely insane and 100 being completely sane. And just a note, there's an automatic 30-point deduction for anybody who has hiked the PCT before. So your top possible score today is 70. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I really am trying to achieve perfection. So you've kind of hit a sore spot here, right?
Were you a high achiever in school?
Yeah, I mean, fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm a giant nerd. Like, I went back to school for university for science, and like, this is not to brag because like this sounds so lame now. I had the highest grades in the whole faculty of science, which is like so nerdy now. But yeah, for sure, I'm like a nerd.
Is that why your wife married you?
No, it's in spite of that. She's not nerdy like me, so it's got to be my charisma, I think.
Man, with that level of nerddom, this 30-point deduction's got to be killing you.
I know, like I said, yeah, I probably never got a 70, so I'm already like at an all-time low here.
You're not going to get a 70 tonight either. Just, I don't want to break your bubble, Lorax, but it's doubtful.
Tell me there's a bonus question for.
Maybe we'll throw in a bonus question, see if we can pad the score a little bit.
75. Yeah.
All right. So these are 7 questions, and I'm going to pull them out of the advanced placement hiking pole questions. You know, you're a seasoned through hiker. You're making gear out there. I mean, you know what you're talking about. So we're going to do the AP test here.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
They're all related to hiking, and it's like you're back in school, though. Right? You're not just going to give me your answer and move on. You have to show your work. You have to explain your answer to me. That's going to help you with my scoring.
Okay.
All right.
I can do that.
Here we go. Question number 1. This is a brand new question. I'm excited to use this brand new question on Dan Durston. Here we go. Question number 1. What is the worst decision you've made on trail?
Oh, wow. Oh, man. What? There's a lot of bad ones. I'm definitely too casual. I'm sort of like that. Everything's going to be fine. Let's just go for it sort of thing. So one that comes to mind is when I did the Bob Marshall Wilderness Open which is a wilderness race across the Montana Rockies. This was like the 3rd year. I didn't I was maybe getting a little like complacent, and I chose this trail that went right through a burn zone. So it was all logs. And I was frustrated because it's kind of a race. It's an unofficial race. So I'm like, shoot, I have like 5 miles of deadfall, on 2 hours into this thing. Like, how did I not see that coming? So it was already a bad decision. And then I was so like keen to not fall behind that I was like running and jumping, and I ended up like hurting my knee, like my IT band, and on like 2 hours into this thing, and then I still like toughed it out, but it was like I could not bend my leg for weeks afterwards. So there's a lot of bad decisions, but that's one of them.
So that was like wilderness parkour.
Yep.
Yeah. Just hopping over logs, doing all kinds of stunt moves out there to get through as quickly as possible.
Yeah. No respect for the knee joint. Yeah.
Gotta respect the knee joint. Absolutely. And I'm a little intrigued. This is not one of the hiking pole questions, but I have the right as the host to ask corollary follow-up questions that I'm just curious about. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's for bonus points, right?
The Bob Marshall Wilderness Open. I mean, who comes up with the concept of a race through the wilderness? It's like, go ahead.
Yeah, there is this event in Alaska called the Alaska Mountain and Wilderness Classic.
Yes.
Super cool. It's A to B, choose your route. It's like such a cool thing because you challenges you in every way. And a guy, Dave Cheneau, that runs a blog, Bedrock and Paradox, he put this one on in Montana that's a little more accessible than going to Alaska. And the area is perfect for it because the Bob is so big. So it's just another A to B, choose your route. And he runs it in May when like everything's half snow. So you're like crossing big rivers. Everything, half the trails are under snow. So it's a real diverse challenge.
And how many people sign up for this?
You never know because there's no sign up. It's like, it's this fun, just like who's going to show up. But there's kind of 7 to 20 people maybe typically. And then everybody goes a different way. So you don't even really know how you're doing. And it's sort of a race, sort of not. Some people are just sort of out there.
Absolutely fantastic. Yes. Okay. Question number 2. In all of your 1,000 miles of hiking, what is your favorite 100-mile stretch of trail?
Yeah. There's like, I love trails. There's so many good ones, but for me, it is the northern section of the Great Divide Trail. I'm sort of a broken record on the Great Divide Trail because it's so awesome. It's kind of like the CDT, but like even wilder. Like it's got the glaciers the whole time. It's tougher because it's not as maintained and all that kind of stuff, but it just gets wilder as you go. So you start off where the CDT ends and then it goes another 700 miles and it just is getting wilder and wilder as you go. And eventually the last 100-ish miles, you're not going to see anybody. Like you'll see more grizzlies than people. It's just like, it's got that intimidation. Like, okay, this is wilderness. So for me, it's that just like soul of wilderness, raw adventure. That final 100 miles is as good as it gets.
Any grizzly encounters?
Yeah, my wife and I, we hiked the whole trail. We yo-yoed it in 2017. Never saw a bear the whole way up. And then coming back down, we saw 4 in like the first couple days. The first one, we were in these tall willows because like parts of it nobody maintains. And so I'm separating willows with my hands, just coming through. And I pop into this clearing and there's a grizzly, like the clearing's only like 10 meters across and there's a bear in it. And I just popped into this clearing. So you don't have time to do anything. You're just kind of like, crap. And he just looks at you and he ran away. It was a good bear. But yeah, that's not what you want to do. You don't want to just surprise them that close.
Yeah, that'd be a little bit tense. Okay. Question number 3. You're a gear guy. What is your least favorite piece of necessary gear?
Oh, the sleeping pads. Terrible. So here's my beef with sleeping pads is that they're like, there's a lot of options. None of them are that comfortable. And there's like the relationship between comfort and weight is, you might say, very flat. Like you could go to a pad that's way heavier and it's better, but it's not that great. So I just toss around on, like I have just bought one of those new Nemo Tensor Elites, the latest pad. It weighs like nothing, but I sleep bad. So then I go to like a pad that weighs twice as much and I sleep a little bit less bad, but it's all kind of bad. And yeah, so you got to have one, but I don't like any of them. And shoes, they always fall apart on me.
So Does it have to be an inflatable pad for you? You ever go with just a foam pad?
I have so much respect for people that can sleep on those things, and there's no way. Like maybe if I was every day on a PCT, but like no, I just so much respect for people who can do that.
All right. Question number 4. What is the longest food carry you've done?
The longest, it would also be the northern part of the Great Divide Trail. That is, we linked the resupply section. There's a resupply that you can go out in the northern part of the Great Divide Trail, but it's 20 miles roughly one way, so it's pretty far, and it breaks up that wilderness feel. So we link them together, and then that's going to be about close to 200 miles, and then and it's not good trail. It's not like PCT trail where you're cruising. It's like, yeah, it's pretty rough. So it's maybe not quite 200, about 180 miles, something like that. And then we just got a food box on a logging road and then came all the way back. So it was 20 days with one box in the middle and basically no people. So civilization was kind of weird after that.
Yeah, I bet. What is your go-to food on the trail?
I've always been a frugal guy. So like the meals and stuff, I haven't bought like a backpacker's meal in probably 20 years. Maybe I'm sure like once I did or something, but not like regularly. So I'm eating I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm eating like Oreos, like dried hummus, cookies, some pepperonis, and then dinners are like spaghettini because it cooks faster. Just like pastas with the powdered sauces or mac and cheese.
I love the Oreo option. You know.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you get sick of trail food, but I would never get sick of Oreos. I could have those every day, right? There's something magic about those things.
They're so good, and they come in so many flavors. Like, shout out to the mint ones. Love those.
Mint Oreos. Is that the favorite?
It's probably that's top. I think mint's number 1, regular's number 2, double chocolate number 3. I would think that's the podium of Oreos.
Podium of Oreos. You know, Lorax, I'm always on the lookout for a trail name for the episode. I like the concept of the trail name. And so I'm always on the lookout for something that kind of catches my fancy, some turn of phrase, something interesting that happens during the episode. And that might actually turn out to be the trail name for the episode. I mean, the Podium of Oreos, that right there is a candidate right now, right off the bat.
It sounds good, yeah.
All right. Question number 5. What is your most hiker trash moment?
Oh yeah, we get pretty hiker trash. My wife's like the squeaky clean one, and I'm the hiker trash one. I think like one thing. There's a lot of things that stand out, but one of the ones was that on the PCT, I bought this straw hat. I kept losing my hat in the first 2 weeks. I went through like 4 hats because I kept losing it. So I bought this straw hat, and I was like, I'm not losing this hat. And it kept blowing off because the desert's so windy. And so this hat had like tumbled like halfway across the desert, and it was like falling apart, and it had holes in it. And I was like so determined to finish the PCT with this hat. So I did. But by the end of the trail, it was like barely a hat. It was like this straw rim with like a few pieces hanging down. And my wife hated it, but I loved it. So it rocked it to the end.
Do you have pictures of you in that hat?
Yeah. It's great. Fun memories.
Fantastic. All right. Question number 6. What is your best hitch story?
We were in, I think, Oregon. We were in Oregon on the PCT, and we had a hard time with some of the hitches, and so I was kind of joking that like we needed to be funnier with our signs, and so I made a sign, just a big sign that said not smelly, and my wife made one that said just like a normal like where we were going, and I had like this big not smelly one, and then she was like, it's not going to work. So then anyways, the very first car picked us up, and I was just like so stoked that the not smelly sign had worked because we had just showered in town. So for once we weren't actually smelly. So it was perfect.
I was going to ask if you were lying, but if you just showered, probably smelled okay.
It was a rare time. Yeah. Oh, actually, hold on. I got a better hitch story.
Go ahead.
We were on the Great Divide Trail, hitching back down. Doesn't matter where we were hitching, and we got picked up by this guy who was on his way to some like electronic rave thing, and he was on drugs. And he so he picks us up. We get in the car because we don't really know this at first. We're going down the highway. We're going 90 miles an hour in this like 50 zone. We're like, this guy's going to get pulled over. He's on drugs. He's like smoking up pretty hard in the car. And he's so out of it that he keeps talking about this town. He's like, I'm going to Hinton. I'm going to Hinton. And we're like, we're from the area. We've never heard of this town. So we're like, I don't know where he's going, but like, we've never heard of this town. And so he talks about it this whole time about how he's going to Hinton for this music festival. And then he drops us off after like 2 hours. And he's so out of it from all the drugs that he drops us off on this little side road. And he gets his car pointed the wrong way. We knew this road. It was like a dead end road up to a lake. So he drops us off. He squeals off like toward the wrong way up this dead end road. We're like, oh man, he doesn't know where he's going. So we're resupplying. And then like 20 minutes later, we see him coming like whipping back the other way. He just didn't even figure it out. He was so out of it. He drove like all the way to the end of this road. And so anyways, we had a good laugh that he didn't know which way to point his car. And then we ended up Googling this town Hinton after, and we're like, it was actually something he had passed like 4 hours before. And he like had not clued in, and he still thought he was going there. So
I thought
it was
that
kind of
story,
scary.
I thought that story was going to end with him pulling up to you after going the wrong way and dead ending, pulling up and asking if you needed a ride somewhere.
Yeah, if we would have put our thumbs out, he probably would have. Hey, where do you need to go?
Yeah, I need to go to the town of Not Smelly.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 7. Speaking of towns, last question in the hiking poll. What is your favorite trail town?
Oh, the ones near the beginning of the PC, Wrightwood. Beautiful town. The trees are there. I love it. Yeah, just a great little spot. And I also have like deep regret from that town because we ordered this pizza and we didn't have our hiker hunger yet because we were only, 2 weeks in or something like that. We ordered this pizza and we couldn't finish it. And so we gave it away. And then like a day later, the hiker hunger was like hitting on the trail. And we were just like, we are such idiots. Like, how do we give away pizza? So it was kind of this like joke for a while that just bad food decisions. But yeah, Wrightwood's a cute town.
Wrightwood, a local ski resort, and here in Southern California. A lot of Southern Californians put their skis on top of their car and head to Wrightwood when the snow hits. So yeah, nice little town there.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Lorax, this is the mathematical portion of the episode. This is where I take your answers and I run them through the Hiker Trash Radio algorithm. Got to take off my shoes here because we're going to use all 20 digits. This is very complex. So I got to carry the 3. We're going to multiply that by pi. We're going to divide that by root 5, of course. I'm going to make some slight adjustments for the bonus information you gave us. We'll factor that in as well. And also going to make a slight adjustment for the number of grizzlies you surprised on your last hike. And I come up with a score of 52. Okay.
I was worried. Above 50, I'll take it.
Okay. You're satisfied with that?
Well, I wouldn't say I can accept it. I'm not going to be up tonight, rolling in bed with agony, cursing your name.
Dang that, Doc. All right.
Worst score of my life. Yeah.
Hey, before we get too far down the trail tonight, Dan, let's back up a little bit. Love to hear about your background, where you grew up, what kinds of activities were you involved in as a kid, and how in the world did you get involved in the thru hiking cult?
Yeah, I grew up in the prairies of Canada, Winnipeg. It's like people call it Winter Peg because it's just dark and cold and windy and snowy and everything like that. And then we moved as a family. We moved to Ontario, Canada, so that's kind of just above Michigan. So we did my family, we did all canoe camping, and we sort of liked the ideas of outdoors, and we did some things, like we did some cool trips. And it planted the seed for me on wanting to get like be outside and all that kind of stuff, but I never really had like the method of doing it. Hiking was sort of this big, heavy, giant pack, kind of like not actually that fun because you're just working so hard. So for me, I was working in a metal shop in Ontario. I was planning to move out west. I had dreams of the mountains, but I was working in a metal shop, like fabricating parts all day long. And I came across ultralight backpacking. Just like that was kind of the glory days, like 2008. Andrew Skirka and Backpacking Light and everybody's nerding out and cutting their toothbrushes. And I've always been the analytical type. So I was like, oh, this is like how you could take something and like turn it analytical, which sort of sounds like it's wrecking it. But for me, it really resonated just because it was like kind of a challenge. Like I love challenges, like whether it's like a physical challenge or, you know, anything. But this was like, oh, like now it's a problem we can try to solve. So that really resonated with me and got into ultralight backpacking. Moved out west to Whistler in the Canadian Coast Mountains. And then just kept nerding out and going deeper. I'm like, when I get passionate about something, I go pretty deep. So just started making my own gear, nerding out, reading blogs, PCT blogs, and the bug was planted. And so that was finally, that all led up to 2014 when we went and hiked the PCT.
Let me ask you, talk about being analytical. Is it better to cut the toothbrush in half up and down or straight down the middle?
That's a great question. I mean, because I think people aren't even asking that question.
They're not.
I think people always are cutting it lengthwise, but then it's stronger than it needs to be. Like, has anybody ever using one of those like broke it? Like, I doubt it, right? So it's stronger than it needs to be. So you could probably cut it lengthwise, and then you would still have better function, and it would be half the weight. So yeah, I would go with lengthwise. There's
more handle there to grasp. I mean, do you actually use all of the bristles on a full toothbrush? I mean, I think you can get away with half of them.
Yeah, I use a kid's toothbrush that does have half of them. It's a little pink teddy bear toothbrush.
Is that every day?
No, that's on the trail.
But, on the trail. Got it.
Yeah.
I thought you and your 3-year-old, had the same toothbrush.
It's stealing my daughter's toothbrush. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. She's got some nice ones. She's got an extra one too.
All right. And so what was your first hike?
The first time I ever tried to go ultra light, so this was like 2008, 2009, probably 2008. We decided, I was super stoked on ultralight. I got out the hiking poles, which at the time were like ski poles, so they were not the super light ones that I love now. We just left a lot of gear behind. Like that was just an affordable, I'm broke sort of way to go light. So I talked a buddy into it. I was like, we're going to do this big loop. We're going to go ultralight. I was kind of like nerding out pretty hard. I went and bought a Go Light backpack at the shop, which was the only new piece of gear I could afford. And then we just left everything behind. Like, until then, I thought you needed like a change of clothes for every day. So it was like 5-day hike, like 5 pairs of pants, so there's some low hanging fruit in my backpack coming into that trip. So we didn't really bring a tent. We just grabbed the tent fly because we were like, well, that's sort of the essence of what you need, I think. We'll just like roll up in it if it rains. Otherwise, we'll just cowboy camp. So that was a 60-mile loop in 5 days. We thought we were hardcore. We were like, whoa, like probably nobody's ever done this in 5 days before. Like the rangers stamped like high risk on our permits, which really stroked our ego. And then we were like on day 3 at like the back half of this loop, and we heard this like footsteps, and we were like, weird, like we're leaving everybody in the dust. So like, how could there be anybody behind us? And then we ended up getting passed by somebody doing the whole thing in a day. And so that took us down a notch.
Fantastic. In this short time we've been talking, I already have 5 other possible names for the episode. We've got problem solving. We've got going deep. We've got nerding out. We've got hardcore. And I like high risk. I mean, getting that stamped by the ranger, that's pretty boss right there.
Yeah, I still have the picture. It was like, we were super proud of that. You also need to have the vertically slit toothbrush.
The vertically slit
or the lengthwise.
Yes. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, Dan. We're going to pay some bills. We're going to hear from some advertisers. And when we come back, we're going to get into maybe some of the PCT hike you took. And then we definitely want to hear about the Durston Gear story. So everybody stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We are talking to Dan Durston, a.k.a. Lorax, and got a great sense of how he got into this whole thing of through hiking. And we're going to hear about the Durston Gear story in just a little bit. Before we get there, though, I want to just touch on your PCT hike. What year did you do the PCT?
I did the PCT in 2014, which was a dry year. They had, I think, a bunch of big snow years, and then we kind of got off easy with a low snow year.
Okay. And knowing what you know now about thru hikers out there on the PCT these days, I mean, a lot of differences between today and 11 years ago when you did it?
Yeah, I mean the tramolese thing is really like a big change. Like there was some of that on our trail, but it wasn't like we never heard the term. It was less like formalized and less. It was a little more just like free floating and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's one of the big changes and just popularity.
Do you think that people today go into their PCT through hike wondering what their tramily is going to look like? They have these expectations of forming these close bonds with strangers and traveling as a group down the trail.
I think there's a little bit of pressure. I think like in my year, it was so for like kind of free floating, like free loving kind of thing. Like you would hike with people as much as you wanted to, and then you would sort of see them again, or maybe you wouldn't. But there was no like pressure or like, can I be in the tramily, or am I sort of like that awkward like in and out sort of like cliques and stuff. I'm not saying like I've never really been in the tramily culture, so I'm not like criticizing it. But it seems like people are a little more anxious about like finding one instead of just sort of like drifting amongst sort of a sea and kind of whatever happens.
How did it evolve to something like that? Where this, it went from free flowing to now this, am I going to be part of a tramily kind of a thing?
Yeah. Like one of the cool things with the PCT is the camaraderie. Like it's such a unique experience that only the people on the trail can really relate. Like you go into town and you're sort of like an exotic specimen of like people in the regular lives can't relate to you. So I think there's a pretty powerful camaraderie on the trail, which does sort of lend itself to that.
Okay. Now, was your wife at the time, or was she your girlfriend at the time?
We were married back then, and so we were a little like less like tramily-ish because we had each other, so we were kind of our own, I guess, mini tramily. And you see a lot of more like the single hikers sort of teaming up into the clusters.
Now, were you both backpackers before you met, or did you convert her to being a backpacker?
I might have. I mean, I don't want to take credit for it. I might have subtly sort of coerced a little bit. Like I liked the idea, and we had some bad experiences early on, like packing way too much gear. I remember taking her on a hike. It was only 2 miles, but we way overpacked. Like we had the whole bottle of ketchup, the whole box of pancake mix. We had all the terrible stuff, and not the stuff you actually need. Like you're probably cold at night, that kind of stuff. So she had some bad experiences, and then she liked the idea of it, and I think got into it kind of when I was too, when we got light and had some good hikes. But the PCT was like, she wasn't so sure about that. So that I was sort of like planting the seed, like, oh, check out this YouTube video, watch this blog. Like Carrot Quinn was a huge blog that year. And then she started consuming that stuff. And you realize that it's not just like superheroes and like, 5-star athletes that are hiking this trail. It's like regular people can do this if you want to. And so, yeah, that I kept planting the seed, and we almost did it the year before. I'm glad we didn't, because she was sort of like, I was maybe going to be like, not forcing her, but sort of like pushing a little hard. So we didn't do it, and it just sort of like let her just like develop that interest too. And so by the time we did it, then she was actually like really stoked to be out there.
Very wise decision, friend. That's a good approach right there. If you would have forced the issue, it could have gone very differently.
Yeah. You don't want to do that.
So when did you start? What are the logistics of your PCT through hike? When did you start? When did you finish?
I went back to school. I was ski bumming in Whistler. I was like, I got to actually get a proper education. So I went back to school, did a couple of years at university, and did not have really any time to train or even like really plan or anything like that. So I did no training. My only sort of training was on the last day, my last exam. I walked 3 miles home from university. It's like, there's the training. I brought my hiking shoes to the exam and then walked the 3 miles home. And then we flew on a plane to San Diego. That was still when like Scout and Frodo, Journeys North people. Yeah, they were still rocking, and we were there, and we were with Girl Scout P. Hicks. Anyways, yeah, it was a fun time. Flew to San Diego, got picked up, got dropped off, and we were just like fish out of water because like we didn't prepare any food. We didn't like train. And I'd just come from like 60 hours a week in like university. And then like 24 hours later, you're standing in like border of Mexico. I'd never really been like southern US before either. So it was like, it's kind of scary. It's intimidating. The PCT is this weird sort of dichotomy between being super intimidating when you think about doing the whole thing, like flying across the continent. And you're like, crap, I got to walk all the way. Everything we're going to fly, I have to walk back. But then on the day to day, it's just kind of straightforward. You just sort of walk. So it's like this weird, scary, but not sort of thing.
So I'm assuming that the 3-mile walk home from university did not give you your trail legs. How long until you felt like you finally had your trail legs under you?
Yeah, that did not at all give me the what I needed, which was a terrible mistake because I was sort of in low drop shoes, sort of lowish, and so I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm pretty nonchalant, like just sort of it's gonna be fine sort of mentality, which it was not at all. So I started on 0 drop shoes, and we did like 20 miles a day. At the end of day 2, so we had done near Mount Laguna, I guess, 40-ish miles in. My heels, like where my Achilles attached, was hurting so bad that I couldn't sleep because they're just throbbing and convulsing all night. And I could like hardly walk. And so I did eventually walk that off, but I still to this day have like these bumps on my heels, now these bone spurs from like the Achilles being too tight and like straining the bone. And so now whenever I buy shoes, my heels like carve a hole for this bone spur in the heel cup, all because I didn't train for the PCT.
Lesson learned.
Yes. Do some training.
What was the most surprising thing about the PCT?
Like there's a few things, like just like a random one is how days off really did not feel like days off because we were just so big because we didn't plan any food. So it was like, where's the grocery store? Go there. What do we need to buy? And then repackage everything. And we're like, crap, like the whole day off was this like resupply effort that didn't feel like a day off. So that was a weird one. So we ended up switching to we'd buy for like 3 towns and mail 2 boxes ahead just so that we not every day off had to be this grocery shopping kind of boringness. So yeah, I definitely was surprised that the days off weren't relaxing. The community was surprising too, like in a good way. Like there's so much culture and community and people and on hindsight, it's obvious, but I just have so busy. I hadn't thought about it. I just was in university and I always thought about this, like where I hike, it's all pretty remote and not that many people. And hiking is sort of just about sort of you in the forest. And then you go there and there's like people and communities and trail angels. And it's kind of obvious stuff. But for me, it was just a very like different experience.
Now you're with each other 24/7 for months in sometimes high stress situations. Did you learn something about your wife that you didn't know previously?
I mean, she learned a lot about her. One of the cool things was she was learning about herself. It was so cool. Like she wasn't sure if she could do it. Like she was like nervous and not sure. And just to see her sort of start to realize that like she can do it, just sort of like expanded her like sense of what she's capable of. And I think she really came out of it just like empowered. Just like she always said, like, I just want to like, make it to Kennedy Meadows and then we'll go from there. And then by the end, she just was like, had done so much and it was just so cool. So I just enjoyed watching her kind of flourish.
Fantastic. Now, was there ever any point during the hike where either you or she thought we're not going to make it?
Yeah, there was a few. So I'm Mr. like steady. I'm just like, I'm sort of this not emotionless person, but almost. I'm just like steady goes. I'm very determined and analytical, and like I decided to do this, so I'm doing it. So like I'm not really like that. Whereas my wife's a lot more like up and down, which is like I'm kind of jealous of because like we go through a beautiful area and she's like in tears at how beautiful it is, and I'm like, yeah, it's nice. Like I don't get the same high, but I also don't get the same lows. So she had some points, like whether it was sort of her personally or like we had a fight or something, but there were like a few times where things were strained and it wasn't so sure about.
And do you want to say something else?
No, that's
okay. Okay. And how long did it take you?
We were about 4.5 months. We had to speed it up because I was not sure if I was going to go to grad school. The degree I just finished was a second undergrad because my first one I didn't really do the right thing. It was in environmental stuff, which I liked, but I wanted to be more in science. So I went back to school, did biology, and then was maybe going to go to do masters in the fall, and I wasn't sure. So we started the PCT, and I'm trying to figure out a master's from the trail, which is kind of stressful. Like it's a day off, and then you're like Skype calling like professors and applying for grants. like applying for grants is so boring. To have to do that on your like day off, is terrible. But we ended up having to pick it up a bit to get to school. So I had to finish about September, I think 4.5 months, April 19th to like September 6th, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, we picked it up at the end and made it to school.
All right. And anything else memorable from that trip that you want to share with us?
It's so cool. I mean, like so much about the PCT is cool. I'd love to hike the PCT again. I was 30 at the time, so I'd love to sort of do it. I don't know. We kind of joked that we're going to do it like every 30 years. So like when we're 60 and when we're 90, it's got to set some goals, right?
That's right. Goals are important.
But the PCT is such a like pure experience for so many things. Like physically, you're just in an amazing shape. Like it's so hard to get back there in life, but it's cool to realize what you're capable of too. I kind of forget the question, but I mean, it's just such a transformative, unique experience. I loved it.
I think you answered it right there then. Now, I know you said that she learned something about herself. Did you learn anything about yourself?
The thing that was different for me is that I'm like it's such a chance to think. Cause when I did the PCT, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a phone in my life till like 5 years ago. I held out for a while. I had a job in the north in a mine. Done a lot of different things, but I was working in a mine, and we go up there for a month at a time. You don't even have cell reception, so like, why do you? And being a cheap person, why do I want to pay a cell bill when every second month I can't even use the phone? So I had canceled it a long time ago. So on the PCT, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have like an iPod. I didn't have like, Your Wonderful Podcast or anything like that. So I'm just like raw dogging it out there. I'm just in my own head, and so that's a very different thing from like the busyness of life to like, wow, I have like nothing for the next like 4 hours as I walk this whole afternoon. And I talk to my wife, but it's like, you eventually run out of stuff to talk about. You're just sort of walking. So that was for me when a lot of the gear stuff started, because then it's like, well, okay, what am I going to think about? Like, we're going to be in town in 4 hours. What am I going to think about between now and then? So then I would pick something. I'd be like, well, my backpack, like this pocket, like the next hour I'm going to think about this pocket and just be like, what could we do there? And I didn't really have any good ideas on the PCT, but I sort of had some like pieces of the puzzle. Just thinking about backpacks and tents, and I didn't have like the big epiphany for the X-Mid tent that's popular now. It happened on the Great Divide Trail 3 years later, but the foundations were from the PCT, where I would just like some of the elements of it, like I wanted it to be a rectangle because they pitch simpler. That was like something that you think about for a few hours and you're like, definitely it's a rectangle. Like that's my shape.
Man, Dan, you beat me to the punch. This is a perfect segue to talk about Durston Gear and how that got off the ground, where it all came from. Because I was going to ask, what happened on the PCT where you thought, you know what, this industry is missing something. There is something that is not going according to how I would think it should go. And so I'm going to fill this niche with my ideas.
Yeah, our story is a crazy one because I really didn't mean to do it. Like, people will say that, but like we really didn't mean to start a gear company. So I had a lot of ideas. Like, I'm an analytical person. I'm always thinking about stuff, but it was always through the lens of me making my own gear. Because I have such a tortured relationship with sewing, because it takes me forever, and then I finally finish and then it still looks bad. And so I'm like, I'm not doing that again. Like, I'm not sewing backpacks for other people because I can barely sort of suffer through making one for myself. So I had a bunch of ideas on the PCT, and then I was blogging a little bit. I had a blog. We did some YouTube videos, but it was super small time. Like, I think I had 56 subscribers on the blog, so it's not too big. And then I did the masters that I talked about. And then after the masters, it was like, perfect. Like, we're done school again. This means a through hike. And so we thought about the CDT, and I was interested in that, but I wanted to try something in Canada, which is the Great Divide Trail is the natural extension of that. But it's too short. It's only 700 miles. And after the PCT, you're like 700, like, you're just getting started. That's like Kennedy Meadows. No, so you gotta tack some more on. So we thought we'd do a yo-yo, of that to double it. And then on that trail, I was still thinking about the same sort of ideas. You go through this whole masters for like 3 years. You're just so busy with day to day. And then you get on the trail again, and again, no phone. We had an iPad mini, but we didn't have a battery bank. So we would do like 8-day sections on one charge. And it was just like we'd blog a little bit on it, but you day to day, you're not gonna use it like for an hour because you're gonna roast your battery. So I, on the GDT, got right back into that gear mentality. I was thinking about gear, and the core issue that I was trying to solve at the time was I liked trekking pole shelters, but I felt like they were too complicated. So it was like there's like 6 or 7 sides, and there's like guidelines and measuring and get this angle right, and how do I get that tight? And I had also used a pyramid that was a 4-sided pyramid, and I was like, well, there's the simplicity that I want. Like it's just 4 stakes, and you pop your pole up. I was like, beautiful, except the headroom's not very good. And so I was always like, for me, it was like, how do I get more headroom, like kind of these dual pole shelters, but in something simple? And I was thinking about this on the PCT, but it was still like, I didn't have the solution. I was just like, we could add more guy lines, or we could add struts, or we could add like this and that. But all of it was sort of, yeah, but it's complicated. On the GDT, I narrowed it down. I was like, I had known it. There's definitely a rectangle. I definitely knew I wanted 2 poles because I was like, I got 2 poles. There's no way I'm going to like only use one and add a bunch of other stuff if I got this other pole. So once I really focused in, I was like, rectangle, 2 poles, can't be near the edges or the flat wall needs a guy line. So eventually I realized like they could be on one angle and I could sleep kind of crossing the other angle between them. And so I had thought of this on the Great Divide Trail halfway through, and I was like, oh, that like seems like it would work. It's like, that seems kind of cool. Like maybe I'll try to sew one of those, but no commercial ambitions. I was just like, maybe if I could sew one for myself, that'd be kind of neat. So like, yeah, I wasn't not going to start a business. And then what happened after the trail, actually something I missed actually was before the trail, a company called Mass Drop in the States, they were giving out hiking poles to like everybody with a blog. They're just trying to get the word out. So I was like, yeah, sure. I'll use the poles and write a blog post saying what I thought of them. So I did that after the hike. I just wrote a blog post kind of saying, it was kind of mixed. I was like, yeah, they're decent poles, like for the price. Like they're, wasn't any like glowing review or anything, but they're good poles for like $50. And then they just asked me that they were like, we're actually trying to develop a lot of other gear. And so do you have any ideas for gear? And their idea was like maybe a cook pot. And I was like, well, I don't know, like a pot's a pot. Like, what are we going to do here? Like, I don't know. But I was like, but I did think of this tent. Like, I think it'd be kind of cool. And then I just like sketched it out and they were like, oh, why hasn't anyone thought of this? And I was like, I don't know. Like, it seems pretty good. So I had no commercial ambitions. I would just like, if they wanted to make this and it was easier than me trying to suffer my way through on the sewing machine, making one for myself, I naively thought it'd be easier just to sort of draw it. And then like somebody professionally makes it. So that ended up like, long story short, they launched the thing. I'm a super passionate guy. So then like when it gets launched, everybody's asking questions. I'm like very involved, helping everybody out. I care a lot about it because it's like my baby. And then, so they launched it. It got a lot of traction. And then they ended up totally restructuring as a business, getting out of the outdoors, and the rights came back to me. I just basically just signed like a royalty thing where I got a few percentage on a sale, and they really took all the risk and managed everything. So then when they got out of the outdoors, everybody wanted the tents. And then I actually had to figure out like, how do we kind of make stuff and run a business and everything. So yeah, I never tried to do it. I'm not really a big risk taker. I am like in certain ways, but not like business ways.
So were you still working at the mines at this point to make ends meet, or I mean, you couldn't survive alone on the royalties? What were you doing? Yeah,
I worked at the mines before I went back right before the PCT. Like I had to make enough money to go back to school. Right. So I'd go work in the mine for a month and make 10 grand, do that a few times. You got like 30, 40 grand. Then I can go to school for a couple of years and sort of suffer through. So I did that. And then once I'd done the 2 degrees, then I did the master's in biology. So I was a biologist. So I worked for a company doing biology, like fish, water stuff. And that really started at the same time as the tents, because I got off the Great Divide Trail. I was like, well, now I need a job. And so I got a job as a biologist. And then I was just sort of brand new to that career, but also the tents are starting. And it was just this fun sort of side thing. It was like, oh, like, you buy a case of beer with the money we made. Like, how fun is that? And then eventually it just got bigger and bigger, and I was almost like had 2 full-time jobs. So are you still working? Are you still working as a biologist right now? No, I left that about 3 years ago. 3 years ago. I was getting busier and busier, but my wife got pregnant with her. Go ahead. Sorry. She got pregnant with my daughter, and in Canada we have like paid parental leave. So I was like, if I can just stick it out until she's born, then I can like go on, because either of us could take it. And anyways, it worked better for me to take it if I could keep working until we had our daughter. So I did that, and then I did parental leave, which is this perfect trial because if it's not working, they have to keep your old job. So you got about 8 months where you can kind of run back with your tail between your legs and go back to your other job. So that was, I guess, 3 years ago that I left the biology job. So I did 2 degrees and all that work and stress, and like only worked it for like 2 or 3 years.
And one of those degrees was not in sewing or tent making?
No,
neither one.
No, my sewing background is we got a $20 pink little kid sewing machine from a craft store, and
it matches your toothbrush.
It does, yeah.
Nice. And so how nerve-wracking was it leaving, even after the leave was over, your pregnancy leave, deciding to go full bore into the Durston Gear tent business?
It was pretty nerve-wracking. The way that it worked is that the original tents were sort of under a contract where I just got a royalty, a few percent. It wasn't like big money or anything. And when they got out of when this original company left the space, they transferred that contract to someone else. So the tents were still there was a transition period of like 2 years where the tents were sold through sort of a partner, and then they were coming back to me. But I wasn't really making that much money, except for they had never done the Dyneema version. We signed a contract for the Dyneema, and if they didn't bring it to market in a year, then the contract's void. So that didn't get to market back in like 2019. So then I was like, okay, I could actually, everything else was sort of out of my hands. They weren't even sure. It could just be stuck under a contract where they just own the rights and don't produce it. So I was like, everything, I don't know what's going to happen with all that stuff, but I can make this one Dyneema version because the contract got voided. So I did that. I worked at the factory, which is a terrible way to start because they're the most expensive tents to build and like with the worst margins. So you need like a lot of money. And then like, I was like, oh, we'll just do a pre-sale. And that'll be great. And we did do a pre-sale, but not in the original way because originally it was just like, well, I'll do a pre-sale, get the money, and then use to fund the production, and away we go. But then COVID hit and the lead times for the material were so much longer, they like doubled. So I was like, I can't do a pre-sale like a year and a half in advance. That's just so lame to like want to buy a tent that you don't get for a year and a half. So I ended up, my brother-in-law is kind of involved in the business too, and he helped us with some financial stuff and rounded up some money. But it's so scary because you're like sinking a lot of money into something and you really don't know, like, you know, do I need 100 or 1,000 or like, you know, can I sell these? I don't know. I've never like sold anything. You're like, are they only selling because these other people have this great website platform that we don't have and this is going to flop? So yeah, some sleepless nights leading up to the launch, and then they sold out on the first day. So I was like, oh, good. Like I had to remortgage my house too for that one. So it was like, like if they didn't sell, you're like, yeah.
That is a huge commitment, a huge roll of the dice right there. But it seems like it's paying off. I mean, there is a buzz out there about Durston Gear.
Yeah, we have amazing supporters. I am so passionate about the gear. I really love the gear. I really care about the people using our gear. And we try to be very authentic. Like we don't advertise. We don't like pay anyone to use our gear. We're just like try to make awesome stuff and try to support the people using our stuff, good support and education and everything like that. And it's been so cool to see like people just sort of spread the word, like no ads, nothing, just people excited.
Yeah, it's a great product. How many different tents do you have? I mean, what are your product lines?
Yeah, we have sort of this trekking pole tent that I talked about. That's a rectangle with the 2 poles, and you sleep in the other angle. That's the X-Mid. That's what we're best known for. And then we make a bunch of versions, like 1 person, 2 person, and then different sort of like more of a winter, a regular, and a super light in the Dyneema. So we have that full line. And then we have our new freestanding tent line. That's just the first one launched 6 months ago. People are really excited about that too. And so that's sort of a freestanding tent meets our trekking pole design. It still has that unique floor plan where the floor is sort of a diagonal, sort of rhombus-y shape. And it has a bunch of nice things. Like I was just trying to solve for headroom when I was like 2 poles, like the headroom's going to be better. But then a bunch of side effects I wasn't even thinking about, like how the vestibule's beside the door instead of like right in the center of the doorway. It's like, oh, then your stuff's not in the way. And it's not so far away to close the zipper. Like some tents you're like crawling halfway into the vestibule to reach the zipper. So I was like, oh, like I didn't even like think about that until I got the first sample. I was like, oh, that just kind of works awesome. So there's some serendipity in there too.
Yeah, I had the chance to use the X-Dome 1 Plus on my recent trip to Frozen Head State Park in the 2025 Barkley Marathons, and I was thoroughly satisfied with the product. It is a great tent. Interesting design because in my experience, in my limited experience, typically the poles, the tent poles, go on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
I take that back. The rainfly goes over the tent poles, right? So you set up your tent with the tent poles above it, and then you put your rainfly over the tent poles, right? And you stake them down. You stake down the rainfly so it's nice and tight. And I'm glad that I set up this tent a couple of times in my living room before I went on the trip, because I ended up setting it up in the dark in Frozen Head State Park that first night, and I had it down by that point. So. It's a unique design in that the poles are the very outer layer and everything is underneath that, even the rainfly.
Yeah, that's one of the key things that I was trying to solve on this tent. There's this weird cultural difference. In North America, everybody likes the tents that pitch with the interior first. They clip up to the poles and you throw the fly on top. I think the reason why that's so popular is because it's so easy to do an inner-only pitch. It's this beautiful sort of Instagram moment of just the interior under the stars, and it's beautiful. In Europe, I mean, this is an oversimplification, but in Europe, they kind of think that's crazy because a lot of the weather's worse. And so they're like, you're going to get soaked when you're setting up the tent if it's got to pitch the interior first. They like the fly first pitching tents, which still can have the poles in different positions. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, there's got to be a way to do both. And usually tents will say they can do both, but a lot of the ones that pitch with the interior first, to actually do the fly first is like, no one's going to remember how to do it. You need like a ground sheet and maybe crawl underneath and connect the poles to the ground sheet that you had to remember to buy and bring. And it just doesn't really happen. But then a lot of the European tents can't set up inner first, inner only. So the whole geometry of it's complicated, but using a rectangle and the floor plan and all the poles, the fly and the floor all go to the same point. So you can set it up in any order. It's interchangeable. You can set up together, separate, fly first, inner first. So it just sort of works. So that's one of the things about it I'm excited about.
Yeah, it was nice and roomy. Zippers very reachable. Not having to climb halfway down the tent, like you said. The vestibule off to the side. It worked out great. It was fantastic. So I appreciate you letting me try that out on the trip. Happy to talk about it at any turn I had out there in Frozen Head. So
yeah, and congrats on your big win at the Barkley Marathons there.
Thank you. It was a surreal experience, trip of a lifetime. It was a lot of fun. Well, Dan, what is next? Either for you, what is your next big adventure, or what's next for Durston Designs? Durston Gear. Sorry. Let me redo that. What is next for you? Either your next big adventure, or what's next for Durston Gear?
For me personally, I'm having so much fun in the Canadian Rockies. They're just like my favorite mountains. I'm trying to do this project where I hike all the old historic trails. There's so many trails over the last century that have sort of fallen into disuse, and I'm geek on the history, so I'm trying to hike all these trails and also extend the trail further north, because the only reason it doesn't keep going is because there's like not the kind of the money and the infrastructure and the people and all the sort of the human element of making, because the mountains are still like amazing. So I did a route a few years ago that extends it another kind of 100 miles. And then it's been cool. I wasn't the first one, but I sort of documented it pretty well. And now every year some people do that. And there's talk of maybe like actually building the trail out another 100 miles. And it's so cool. So I'm very personally invested in that. I like that. For me, like the personal investment in the hiking is so valuable in deepening my experience. And I think for anybody, like if you read about the history of the area, if you read about like early explorers, if you get involved in like trail building, and do all those things, and then you're not just sort of out there sort of spaced out and disconnected from like culture and history, but you're like a part of it. So I recommend to everyone to kind of like go deeper in those areas, or any areas you want, like geology or biology, just go deeper and it'll deepen your experience. And then for gear, I love gear. Like I love the nature. I love like challenges, like fun stuff, races, and I love like gear. It's just so much fun. So I have tons of ideas for gear, and it's just like, I feel like anything that you really geek out hard about, you can get some ideas on. Like, it's not like, I think there's so much room for like passionate people to create great stuff. And there's such a great community of cottage gear companies and people doing really cool stuff. And we're excited to be part of that. So for me, like some of the gear, like our freestanding tent is coming out. The 2-person comes out in just over 2 weeks. By the time it airs, it's probably out. I think that's going to be like a big one. People are super stoked. And then beyond that, it's like anything that we think we can really make better. Like we'd love to do like everything, like sleeping bags and pads and like, but I don't want to do something if I'm not really excited about making it better. So I don't know. I think we're going to end up as this weird company where we have like, a third of the products that you might need or something, because those are the ones we, certain, like we're probably not gonna have a pot because like, how do you make a pot better? But, if we can, a sleeping pad, I don't have an idea for one, but as I mentioned, I don't like sleeping pads. There's gotta be a better, I don't know what it is. There's just gotta be a better way. So one of these, like I need to go for another long hike and just think about sleeping pads for like a couple months.
Put it in the think tank out there. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're geeking out. We're having a lot of fun, and we're going to, do the dome tents this year, but hopefully like just keep the ideas going. And we got the backpacks too that are really getting popular. So much to do.
Hey, I'm going to send you a contract just in case you get passionate about the vertical split toothbrush. I can maybe get some royalties on that.
You should. Yeah. Or get your patent in quick. We're both going to sign off and we'll be racing to the patent office.
All right. Hey, Lorax, you know where we are right now?
Towards the end.
Hiking hacks.
That's right. It's time for your hiking hack, and this segment is sponsored by the outdoor clothing brand Magnet Designs. Thru hiker owned and making quality ultralight craft outdoor gear by hand in Bend, Oregon. Designed on trail, built for trail life. Visit magnetdesigns.com with no E in designs. So Dan, what trail wisdom do you have for our listeners to make their next outdoor adventure even better?
Yeah, so my best tip here, and all your smart listeners are going to know this one, but I feel like there's enough people that are like me that think that on the trail, all you need is like a few sleeves of Oreos. A lesson that I learned really the hard way is the importance of electrolytes. So I had never ever had had any powder or pills or anything in my life. I remember one trip a buddy brought some and we just sort of made fun of him for his stupid looking pills. And then I tried to do an FKT of this hike. It was 60 miles in a day and it was blazing hot. And I didn't even know what electrolytes did. I was just like, there's something you could buy. But I tried to do this FKT and I was sweating like crazy because it was blazing hot and these burn zones, and I had all like the white sweat stains. And eventually I didn't notice at the time, but I just like totally ran out of salt. And then my heart was racing and I was throwing up. I ended up like kind of calling it and just like laying down on this sandy next to the creek, and my heart would not come down. I could just feel it like ripping along for hours. I laid there like basically naked for like 6 hours, like stopped at like 8 p.m. 2 a.m. I was still laying there. Heart would not come down. I was like kind of scared, like what did I do to my body? I did then realize that I had this pouch of tuna in my food bag, a little pouch of tuna that was in a salt brine. And I was like, maybe that's what I need. Because I had 0 salt on this trip. And so I drank the brine, and then like an hour later, my heart came down and I was like, okay, that's why you need electrolytes if you're exerting in the sun. So it's not just sleeves of Oreos. Bring some electrolytes in the hot, sweaty weather.
And is there a Durston Gear tuna brine supplement that you're actively pursuing?
We should make. I don't think that the tuna flavor is like really been exploited yet in the electrolyte market. You know, there's like lime and lemon and grapefruit, but the tuna,
it's ready to explode. That's right.
Is, yeah.
That's a great tip. All right, so there you have it. We are just about done here. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Lorax. Want to thank you for joining us this week. Dan, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Yeah, Instagram's a good spot, but like it depends on how involved people want to get. The most involved is the Facebook group, Durston Gearheads. We got like 16,000 amazing people like geeking out on gear there. That's like the day to day. I'm there every day. That's this kind of the hub. Instagram, we're on there every week or two. Like we're on there too. Post if you just want sort of like news every couple of weeks. That's a spot. And then if you really only want to hear like when we have something big, our email list on our website, we email like twice a year. Just sort of I hate getting too much email, so just like when there's big news, that's it. So
man, when there is a Facebook group named after you, the Durston Gearheads, that's when you know you've made it. That's when you know you're big.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I was like, this is going to be awkward. Like at the time we had one product. I was like, how much can you talk about one thing?
All right. Remember to check out Hiker Trash Radio on social media as well. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at hikertrashradio@gmail.com.
Off the beaten path.
Now, unfortunately, Dan, we can't always be on the trail. And when we're not, we need to find a way to get our adventure fix. So I'm going to ask you to share some outdoor adventure media with our listeners to help them get by. This could be a book, a movie, documentary. We call this segment Off the Beaten Path. What do you have for us?
Yeah, well, something I've discovered that I love, and this is more of like a type than a specific, but there are, for almost every area, there are amazing books that were written by like the early explorers. Like around 1900, it was sort of this golden era of book writing where like it was sort of novel enough that you were going somewhere that you could get like a book published. So it's probably like, the first people in Sierras and the first people in Canyonlands and the first people like, a lot of these different remote areas. For me, so I'm reading here in the Canadian Rockies, and just, it's neat to like areas that I've hiked. I'm like able to like, after hiking that, then read about somebody experiencing that landscape, like at least for the first time for them. And before there were like the trails were necessarily the way they are today and things like that. So it gives me that deeper experience. And it was this golden era where like from like 1890 to like 1930. So like it was everybody that like was like an explorer was like publishing books. So there's some fun reads that'll deepen people's experience. So I'd read about your local area, try to find something like that.
Fantastic.
What have we not asked you?
And before we wrap things up tonight, just one more segment for you called What Have I Not Asked You That You're dying to tell us about? What do we miss tonight?
Yeah, so it sort of slipped out here and there, but the Great Divide Trail is like this absolute gem for people. Like, I don't want to blow out the spot because it's so special, but it's like it's also so awesome that to not talk about it's kind of a crime. It's just like the real deal. It's what the Canadian Rockies are so beautiful. And then it's wild, it's authentic, it's intact. Like I love lots of different trails for lots of different reasons, but like that one that just has such a deep sort of true wilderness experience that if people are looking for like, to go deep, to go like wild and see nobody and challenge themselves, like the Great Divide Trail, I mean, people, you gotta do it.
And you keep adding 100 miles to the end of it, right? So, I mean, it just keeps growing.
Yeah, the concept goes all the way to Alaska. It's like, I think it would be like 8,000 miles, like a triple CDT or something. But there's like no resupplies, so it's like so it goes up Canada and then curves through the Yukon and all the way down to like the western tip of Alaska, the divide.
You'd have to do unsupported.
You would, yeah.
That's a lot of food. And
then once the trail exists, which is now we're a century into the future, but I don't think anyone's ever hiked like the full divide across North America, like true. It's an idea. People.
Goals. Got to have goals.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we are finished. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We wish you the very best in your upcoming adventures and your new product line that's going to be released. Hope you'll consider coming back at some point and sharing some more stories with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Hey, listeners, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you didn't mean to start a very popular gear company. The trail is the trail. Embrace the sock.